Ready to go deep.
Let's dive in.
Today, we're tackling a fascinating world where cutting-edge tech meets global strategy, exploring AI, quantum computing, and their potential implications for space exploration and even warfare.
Sounds intense.
It is. And to guide us, we have the insights of Dr. Yogesh Malhotra. His work spans Silicon Valley giants, Wall Street, the U.S. Air Force, even the United Nations.
Talk about range.
Seriously, we're basing this deep dive on a presentation he gave at the 2020 Space4Women conference in Berlin.
Okay.
Get ready for some surprising insights into the potential and the limitations of these technologies, the challenges of controlling them, and what it all could mean for the future of space exploration.
And maybe for humanity itself.
Exactly. Now, what I find fascinating about Dr. Malhotra is how he cuts through the hype around quantum computing.
It's needed.
It really is. He brings it down to earth,
Yeah.
examines real-world applications. So quantum computing, everyone's heard the term, but it still feels like Star Trek to many.
It's a mind-bending concept.
Break it down for us.
Well, instead of bits, which can be either a 0 or a 1, you have qubits, which can be both at the same time.
Simultaneously, right?
Yeah. This superposition, along with another quantum phenomenon called entanglement, allows them to explore so many possibilities all at once. And that's what gives them a speed advantage for certain types of problems.
This is the massive parallelism that Dr. Malhotra talks about.
It is.
When would this be a game changer then?
Well, imagine designing new materials at the molecular level. That means simulating the interaction of countless atoms,
Right.
or trying to optimize complex systems, logistical systems with thousands of moving parts.
Uh-huh.
A quantum computer could theoretically tackle these problems at speeds unimaginable for classical computers.
That sounds revolutionary. But Dr. Malhotra cautions against seeing quantum computing as a magic bullet.
Exactly. It's not replacing our laptops anytime soon.
Definitely not.
It's a specialized tool.
So we've got this potentially revolutionary tech, but with specific applications. Where does AI fit in?
That's where it gets even more interesting. Dr. Malhotra argues that we need to move beyond thinking in these separate fields and start envisioning real-world AI cyber-crypto-quantum networks. He's talking about a system interconnected, where each tech boosts the others.
So it's not just AI getting smarter, it's AI, quantum computing, and cybersecurity all working together.
Precisely. And this brings up interesting questions, especially when you think about how these technologies could impact warfare.
Okay, now we're in sci-fi territory, right? AI-powered quantum weapons.
Not necessarily weapons in the traditional sense. Dr. Malhotra focuses on the U.S. Air Force's Advanced Battle Management System.
ABMS.
Right, ABMS.
Okay.
And then its expansion, the Joint All-Domain Command and Control, or JADC2.
Those are some acronyms. Break those down for us. What are we talking about here?
Think of ABMS as the nervous system of future warfare. It links centers, decision makers, and weapon systems, allowing them to share info and coordinate in real time.
Okay.
JADC2 takes it further, integrating all military domains: air, land, sea, space, and cyber.
Creating a completely interconnected battle space?
Yes.
That's got to be incredibly complex.
It is. And that's where AI and quantum come in. The amount of data would overwhelm human operators. AI could process and analyze that data, identify threats, recommend courses of action. Quantum computing could provide the power to make sense of it all in fractions of a second.
So the future of warfare could be much faster paced than what we're used to.
Dr. Malhotra believes so. But he also highlights a potential flaw in this lightning-fast, tech-driven approach. He calls it the control problem.
Control problem, meaning what in this context?
It boils down to this. While AI and quantum computing are great at numbers, at optimizing processes, they lack the common sense, intuition, and imagination that humans have. In battle, when the unexpected happens or new information comes in, these systems may not be able to adapt or understand the broader context like a human can.
They might make fast decisions, but lack the nuance and flexibility needed in complex, unpredictable situations.
Exactly. He points out that a system might identify a threat, but without understanding the context, the probabilities, the potential consequences, it could trigger an escalation leading to, well, catastrophe.
That's a sobering thought. So even with all this tech, human judgment is still crucial.
Very much so. Dr. Malhotra uses a historical example to illustrate this. Stanislav Petrov, the Soviet officer who, during the Cold War, correctly identified a false alarm from a Soviet early warning system and prevented a nuclear war.
Wow. One person's judgment potentially saving the world. That really makes you think.
It does. And this leads to one of the core points of his presentation, the importance of what he calls smart humans.
Meaning?
People who can operate these complex technologies but also understand their limits and exercise good judgment when it matters most.
So we need people who can not only use the tools, but also think critically about their use.
Exactly. And he links this to the need for a strong STEM education. We need to train the next generation, not just to be good with the tech, but to think critically, analyze information, and make ethical judgments in how they develop and apply it.
It's not just about building the tools, but making sure we use them wisely.
That's key. And Dr. Malhotra doesn't stop there. He goes deeper into the ethical implications of these technologies, especially for warfare. This is where ABMS-2 comes in.
ABMS-2, is that an upgraded version of the ABMS we talked about?
It's more like a whole new way of thinking. Dr. Malhotra sees a future where war is less about physical force like bombs and missiles and more about what he calls C4I, cyber EMS supremacy.
Okay, another acronym. What's C4I, cyber EMS?
It stands for Command, Control, Communications, Computers, Intelligence, Cyber, and Electromagnetic Spectrum. Essentially, he's talking about achieving dominance not by destroying the enemy, but by controlling and manipulating their systems, rendering them ineffective.
So instead of blowing things up, we're talking about electronic warfare and cyber attacks that disable.
Exactly. This could radically change warfare and even what winning means.
Fascinating. But wouldn't that kind of power be incredibly dangerous in the wrong hands?
That's the concern Dr. Malhotra raises. He argues that these technologies could be used for very bad things, causing disruption or triggering catastrophic events. And he's not talking about cyber attacks on banks or businesses, but about potentially crippling critical infrastructure, disrupting communications, and even causing nuclear meltdowns.
That's terrifying. If these technologies can be that destructive, how do we ensure they're used responsibly?
That's the big question. And Dr. Malhotra grapples with it head-on. He advocates for strong governance mechanisms, international cooperation, and ethical frameworks to guide the development and deployment of these technologies.
So we need guidelines, ethical considerations, and agreements to prevent misuse.
Absolutely. And this brings us back to the core of Dr. Malhotra's message, the need for smart humans to guide all of this.
People who understand the power of these tools, but also their limitations.
Right. He's calling for us to have these difficult conversations now, to think critically, and to advocate for the responsible development and use of these technologies.
So it's not enough to simply advance the technology. We need wisdom and foresight.
Exactly. And it gets even more interesting. Dr. Malhotra goes into social networks and their role in this.
Okay.
He wants to see human-driven social networks,
Right.
Networks that empower users, contrasting them with some of the current social media platforms that, well, seem to prioritize profit over their users' well-being.
He's talking about how we use tech to connect with each other, to build communities. It's a pretty big picture view.
It is. He believes these human-driven social networks could help promote ethical decision-making and mobilize us to address the challenges we face as a species.
It's a fascinating concept, and it connects directly to his main message: do something epic, save the world. He's not just talking to scientists and engineers, he's talking to all of us.
Right.
He wants us to find our own ways to make a difference.
And he's drawing a direct connection between this and the doomsday clock, which, as you know, is set at 100 seconds to midnight, the closest it's ever been to global catastrophe.
A stark reminder that the stakes are high. But Dr. Malhotra also reminds us that we have the power to change course, to use our knowledge, our ingenuity, and our will to create a better future.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to continue exploring in the second part of this deep dive. We'll look closer at Dr. Malhotra's insights, focusing on the implications for space exploration, the evolution of warfare, and the very existence of humanity. So stay tuned.
Stay with us. It's a lot to think about, isn't it?
It really is.
Dr. Malhotra paints a thought-provoking picture of this future shaped by AI and quantum computing. Doesn't shy away from the downsides either, especially when we talk about warfare.
Right.
But he emphasizes how important human agency is in navigating this new landscape.
That's key, I think.
We can't just let technology dictate the future. We have to be involved, shape how these tools develop.
And how they're used.
In a way that's aligned with our values, our vision for the future.
That's where his focus on STEM education comes in,
Right.
I think. It's more than just training scientists and engineers.
It's about creating a society that gets it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A society that understands these technologies.
Yeah.
That can talk about them in an informed way,
Have those conversations.
and hold people accountable.
We're using them responsibly.
Yeah.
It's about empowering people to be informed citizens, to make decisions about the future they want to live in.
Right. Not just leaving it to the tech companies or governments or the military.
Exactly.
It's like he's calling for a democratization of knowledge when it comes to this stuff.
I like that.
Because these technologies are going to impact all of us, not just a select few.
Right. And that leads us to this idea he has about human-driven social networks as a way to counterbalance the more commercially driven ones that we see today. You know, the ones that dominate the digital world right now. These networks could be spaces for sharing information, discussing the ethical side of all this, collaborating on solutions.
It's a very interesting vision.
It is.
And it fits with that whole idea of empowerment that Dr. Malhotra talks about so much.
It does.
He really believes that we can shape the future, guy.
Yeah.
How these technologies develop so they benefit humanity.
Not harm it.
Exactly.
And it's not just about stopping these technologies from being used in bad ways.
No.
It's about using their power for good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Climate change, poverty, disease, inequality.
You know that.
We need to go beyond this thinking about scarcity and competition and work together more collaboratively.
Where it's a sustainable approach to technology.
Yes.
And that's where that do something epic, save the world idea comes in.
Such a powerful message.
It is. It goes beyond borders and politics.
Right.
It's about all of us.
We're all in this together.
We are. He uses Eileen Collins as an example. The first woman to command a space shuttle mission.
Oh, yeah.
That spirit of courage and innovation.
Dedicated to something bigger than herself.
Exactly.
It reminds us that we can all achieve amazing things, you know, make a real difference in the world.
It's about finding that spark.
That passion to make a difference.
And then acting on it.
It doesn't have to be commanding a spacecraft.
No, it could be pursuing STEM, or advocating for responsible technology, or volunteering.
Or just having these conversations with people,
Yeah.
you know, with your family and friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Every action counts. Every action can make a difference.
That's a ripple effect.
Exactly. And Dr. Malhotra's own life is a great example of that.
He's done it all.
Academia, industry, government, pushing the boundaries of knowledge, finding solutions.
He really walks the walk.
He does. He's a living example of what you can achieve when you combine intellectual curiosity with a passion for making the world better.
It's inspiring.
It is. And he's challenging us to follow his lead, to embrace innovation,
To push those boundaries.
and work together.
To create a future that we can all be proud of.
A future that's worthy of our aspirations.
And speaking of aspirations, this is especially relevant when you think about space exploration.
It is.
There's just something about venturing into the unknown.
Pushing the limits.
It captures the imagination.
It does.
And with all these private companies getting involved, SpaceX Blue Origin,
Right.
it feels like we're on the verge of something amazing.
It's a new era.
But even as we reach for the stars, we can't forget the problems we have here.
No.
Dr. Malhotra makes that point too.
He does.
Space exploration isn't about running away from our problems. It's about using our knowledge,
Right.
our technology, our ingenuity to solve them.
To create a more sustainable future.
And with the doomsday clock ticking, that message has never been more important.
It's urgent.
Dr. Malhotra's call to action, it resonates everywhere.
From space to warfare to our everyday lives.
It's a reminder that we all have a part to play.
We all have a role.
And that even small actions can make a big difference.
Absolutely.
And for those of us interested in STEM, this is especially empowering.
It is. It reminds us that STEM is about more than just the technical stuff.
It's about using our skills to make a real difference.
To improve lives.
To make the world better.
That's what makes his deep dive so interesting.
I agree. It's not just about science and technology.
It's about human potential.
It is.
Our capacity to create a future that's innovative and sustainable.
Technologically advanced.
But also ethically grounded.
And that's a journey we can all be a part of.
We can. It takes courage, curiosity, a willingness to challenge what we think we know and to push those boundaries.
And it starts with a simple question.
What can I do to make a difference?
That's something to think about as we go into the final part of our deep dive.
Where we'll really dig into what all this means for the future of space exploration, the evolution of warfare, and what it means for humanity.
So much to unpack from Dr. Malhotra's presentation.
It really is. A lot to think about.
All those ideas, from the technical details of quantum computing to the bigger picture stuff about smart humans guiding the future.
Yeah, it makes you realize the scale of change we're facing as AI and quantum computing become more and more a part of everything.
Dr. Malhotra definitely doesn't shy away from the complexity of all this.
Yeah.
He's looking at it from all sides, seeing the potential but also the risks.
He does. And he doesn't try to oversimplify it.
Right. He's pushing us to think critically.
To talk about it.
And to be responsible for shaping the future.
The future's not just something that happens to us.
We make it happen.
Through the choices we make, the actions we take.
Collective efforts.
Yeah.
You know, I want to circle back to that idea of ABMS-2 for a second.
Okay.
That shift from kinetic warfare to C4I cyber EMS supremacy.
Right.
It sounds like science fiction.
It does kind of. But like you said, the pieces are already there.
We're seeing advances in electronic warfare, cyber capabilities, AI.
It's not hard to imagine how these technologies could come together, the way he described.
And imagine what happens then. Warfare becomes less about physical destruction and more about controlling information and systems.
It changes everything.
The whole idea of conflict.
It does. How do you define victory then? What are the rules? How do you stop things from escalating?
How do you make sure this power isn't used in the wrong way?
Few questions.
And Dr. Malhotra doesn't have all the answers.
No, but he's telling us to start having these conversations now.
Before it's too late.
Before these technologies get so advanced that we can't control them.
Be proactive. Think ahead.
Develop safeguards.
To guide the development and deployment of these technologies in a way that actually benefits humanity.
Exactly. Remember, technology itself isn't good or bad.
Right. It's how we use it.
It's a tool.
And it's up to us to decide how we use it.
That's the key point.
It brings us back to that powerful idea. Do something epic, save the world.
It's a call to action for all of us.
Especially those of us who are drawn to science and technology.
It's a good reminder.
STEM isn't just about equations and algorithms.
Well, it's about using our skills to solve real problems.
Making a difference.
Yeah, positive impact.
Taking responsibility for what we create.
Contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
And understanding that even small actions can have a big impact.
Absolutely.
You know, Dr. Malhotra's presentation has really made me think.
It's definitely thought-provoking.
It's about the implications of AI and quantum computing.
On society warfare, the future of humanity.
It's a call to action for all of us.
To engage in these conversations, think critically about the choices we make.
To work together.
To create a future that's innovative, but also ethical.
Technologically advanced, but human-centered.
Exactly.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
Dr. Malhotra says the sky's not the limit, nor is cyberspace.
He's right. The only limit is our imagination.
And our willingness to do something epic, save the world. So what will you do?
What epic thing will you do?